what I'm going to do in this presentation is I'm going to take you through a lot of the tactics I use. How do you find who to talk to? How do you talk to them? And what's the sort of end result? So there are a number of things that need to happen in order to make this a successful endeavor. First and foremost, we got to find who to talk to. These are our prospects. This is our chase list. Who are the accounts? Are we talking to restaurants? Are we talking to car washes? Are we talking to golf courses? So first and foremost is we need to get a lot of information. We need to find out the names of the restaurants and who might be a key decision maker at the restaurant. And we'll talk about identifying who to talk to, because that really buttons up a sales cycle. Realistically, a sales cycle like this for this product, if we can distill it down from first contact to close to about 11 days, about 2 weeks, 2 business weeks, that's a reasonable cycle. And if we're running campaigns on a weekly basis and getting things that, on a regular cadence, then, as that rolls, you're starting something new and you're closing something new every single week. So one tactic that I've used is Reference USA, or it's called data.com if you use it through Salesforce. This is through the Denver Public Library. It's free. The list that I sent out to everybody that has 6,500 restaurants for the state of Colorado, I pulled through Reference USA. I created it through there. So, this is how I do it. I got myself a library card, created a username and password. So I get on the Denver Public Library, go to Research, Business, scroll down here. There it is. Okay, so now we're on Reference USA. We can look at businesses here. So we've got a couple ways we can look at it. So right here, we can go through and look at company names. And there are ways that we can really start to look at and pull information. Basically, every industry has a code assigned to it, a SIC code or an NAICS code. And so when we are looking for information, it's useful to search by this code because it's going to distill it down and give us a real target here. So now Reference USA and data.com are the same thing. It's one is delivered through Salesforce, the other is the Denver Public Library. You can get the same information, exactly the same, and I've gone through that. In any case, right here I can find contacts, actual people to talk to, and that can be useful if, say, for instance, you want to target food and beverage directors, or C-level executives or something like that. Now, if I want to find accounts, this is where I would develop a chase list. This is how I could do it. So let's say, for instance, obviously we're in the United States. All right, we'll look at Colorado here. We'll do that. Now, select an industry. So let's say, we're going to look at restaurants here. Now, there's a tactic with these tools, and that is they don't let you have access to unlimited information. What they'll do is they'll show you what the search results are, but then after about 300 results, a lot of it is closed off. So you have to be tactically smart. How do you customize a search so that you can maximize your information gain? So in this case, if I pull out all the restaurants and eating places, I'm going to get a big result. And I'll show you how we can sort of manage through that. Now, as you can see, I've got 27,000 results. Okay, that's a lot. Now, there's going to be a lot of dupes in here. There's going to be a lot of outliers in here that just don't make sense. Error methods, corporation. So it allows you to sort of distill down by single location, headquarters, whatever. So what I did was, I refined a search here, and what I did is I literally went zip code by zip code. So Colorado has, 80 different zip codes. So I could put in 80202 and pull the list through there, and I could put in all those things. If a zip code had too many, then you can distill it down by maybe cities or regions within a metro area. So, but the point is, what you'll find here is, let's say for instance, let's look at High Mountain Pies here. What I would do then is export these things. Let me just pull this. I could export it. Now, in Reference USA, you can export it to an Excel file. And once you have that and you create those exports, then you have your chase list. So there's a lot of data cleaning, okay? So, after a while, you'll get a chase list of 6,500 different restaurants or whatever. And, you can go through, you sort, you filter, you clean that up. You basically export that down into a chase list. Now, I'll go ahead and pull up one of mine here. Here's one that I've created. I've got the name, the address, where located. I'm getting email addresses, contact information. As you can see, it's pretty extensive. 5,500 over a territory. And this is stuff I pulled from data.com. The next process in this is, finding context. So anyway, that's sort of a basic overview of how we can generate chase lists, okay? The bottom line is this, particularly on Reference USA, it is incumbent upon you to get on the tool and play with it. Figure it out, get familiar with this, because ultimately there's a lot of information out there, and you just have to sit down and learn it. It's accessible. If you can poke around with your mouse and take some notes or whatever, you'll find pretty quickly that you can get a lot of information, pulling it out into Excel. If I upload into my CRM, Salesforce, a new restaurant, and I have their contact information, right? That goes into data.com, Reference USA. I mean, there are thousands of salespeople who are accessing this database on a daily basis and updating it. The beauty of it is, if the information is wrong, it's not that difficult to find information that's right. And I'll get to that here shortly. Yelp. Yelp is a great source. Let's see, once we launch CRM, we can download into our systems, creating pipeline. Yes, that's the one thing about a good CRM, is that if it is connected to the right source, or it has the capacity to take and export, that stuff populates, and it's awesome. I mean, I'll show you how it works in data.com. Let's take Air Methods Corp. I'm going to add it to Salesforce. I'll go to the account. I just added it. Now I have the account information. And what's wonderful is I don't have any contact information here, but if I hit this Get Contacts button, there's 160 people affiliated with it. Now I can go through and see, who do I want to talk to?
Board members.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, I want to talk to the sales manager. I'll add that to Salesforce. Boom. Just like that. So getting stuff like this linked up really superheats this process. I mean, it's absolutely crazy how quickly you can find real information that's usable. In this case, I have the email, the phone number, and we're off to the races. Then I can shoot that into an email marketing campaign. So in any case, that said, even without that, using Reference USA, using some Excel tools and some of the other management tools that are out there, it's still a very quick process.
So you're going to Yelp.
Yeah. So anyway, Yelp, same thing. What's here in Denver, Colorado? Simply copying and pasting these things into Excel is easy to do, and you can create a pretty big chase list with this. Now, what I found, let's see, if I do a quick sort, sort this, yes, boom. Now, you can identify how to find what you need to find. So in this case, all the names that, or all the businesses that you need to find are within a certain cadence. There's a 1 dot or a 10 dot or whatever, anything that has this sequence before it, right? Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Those are the things that you can pull out of this. So instead of taking a lot of time to go through and look at, try and pull this, if you can identify things that are common to your chase list name, then you can pull out you can clean this up pretty quickly. Look for patterns. Here's the pattern, okay? Kitchen table is the first item. It says 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5. See, now I know that. Now I've just thrown a bunch of information onto Excel, right? So there's, in this case, scroll down.
Oh, you're just cleaning it.
Yeah, and do you see how I'm doing that?
Uh-huh.
What I did was all of the numbers showed up as 1 dot. There's a period, right? That period is a commonality to all the names. So what I did then was I created a quick function to separate them out and to say keep all the 1s in one column, and if there's a dot there, then everything after that dot, move it to another column. Now I can search by all the individual numbers, right? And so then I do a quick sort, and now I have everything in sequence here. 9 out of the 10 are ones that I need. This one is not good. And there you go. Now I have a chase list here, and this is where some of the fun begins. Networking. There are a lot of complementary businesses out there to what we're doing. There are POS resellers. There's OpenTable. There are onboarding companies. There are scheduling companies. A lot of companies out there build channel partnership agreements with companies like us. So it's very well worth our time to reach out to the POS resellers. Beck POS, RDS. These are guys that if we can come to some sort of agreement with, and they'll start referring us to some of their client base that they're already in stores.
And they would hope that we reciprocate.
Of course. This is the nature of channel partnerships. It is a quid pro quo, but it sure is a lot easier to win an account and win a customer base through a warm lead. And ultimately, in sales, I don't like cold calling. I don't like going up to people and saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, buy from me. What I like doing is tilling the field and having them come to me, right? So, in networking and building these channel partnerships, take the time and look. In the nonprofits, there's probably a huge opportunity to really network with a lot of these companies and groups, and and get those referrals. So we can. This in and of itself is an entirely different conversation. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is develop a chase list. We're trying to build our prospect list. We can do it through Reference USA. We can do it through Yelp. We can do it through the industry pubs, through networking. These are all these things. And the more activities that we engage in, the bigger the numbers are. And really, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to transcend sales and turn it into our own individual marketing campaigns. So now that we have our chase list, how are we going to find contact information? Okay, so this can be a little arduous. And so what I recommend is, focus on a territory that you want to win. Focus on a municipality you want to win and segment it up. Boulder has 300 restaurants. Now, if I marketed to all 300 restaurants right at the same time, that's probably going to overwhelm me, right? If I put out a blitz there, by the time I have to make the follow-up calls, I can do it, but I can't follow up quickly enough, and I'm going to lose a lot of people because they go cold. I just can't get to them soon enough. So what I recommend is, create from your chase list, pull 30 or 40 a day, sit down for an hour, and mine for contact information. It's that easy. So, okay, so one of probably the best source of contact information is Facebook. We'll type this in to the win. Go to the About page. I know this is quick. Go to page info. Let's see.
Boom, owner.
You've got the owner name. A lot of times they'll have an email address there. So in this case, easy enough. Title owner, to be determined. All right, now, how do I find an email if I don't have it on Facebook? Well, let's take a look. First, I'm going to go to the website and see if they have.
There it is.
There it is. And I'm done. That took me about 2 seconds. I mean, seriously. If you're going to do 20 or 30 of them, commit to a half an hour or an hour, and you have your contact information. It's a daily thing. You're not going to win 600 all in one fell swoop. The first iteration, in your first blitz, you'll probably win 50 or 60. Now, contact information you can be very, very clever about this. If you can't find it on the website, or you can't find it on Facebook, what I like to do is I can type in something like General Manager of Black Belly Market, and there it is, General Manager Michael Sertani, right? I mean,
Google.
See, I need, if I use different sources to find an email address or a phone number or a name, I can marry it all together. So if I have an email address and a phone number, but I don't have a name, I can go through and start looking at who might be a relevant contact. Because a lot of times, if you have sort of a general email address, if you put the right name on it, eventually it's going to get to them. You're sort of you're taking an educated guess. I mean,
So you have 1,000 results for Chipotle Denver.
Right. So current company, we don't want anybody who's in the past. Now we have 472. Do you have anybody in your connection list? First connections, maybe second connections. I've got 88. You see what I'm saying? So now I have some strings attached. I'm at.
They're more likely to talk to you if you have a connection, right? Okay.
Right. Now we're going to talk tools here. That's going to make this a little bit more salient. But as you can see, finding that contact information has really changed the picture. And the more relevant you can get and the more accurate you can get, the better conversion rates you're going to get. So we've got a prospect list, and now we have our contact information, and this is the cadence at which we're building our the people that we're sending out a message to. Okay, so let's talk about broad-based tactics here. Again, with sales, sales is about getting the message out, and we're building relationships, one-on-one type things. If I were involved in, national campaigns, if I'm trying to win Allstate, or if I'm trying to win a 500-unit restaurant company, right? That's sales. That's where I'm finding the key decision makers. I'm building relationships. I'm in a 6-month sales cycle where, we've got to talk to these people. We've got to present the solutions. We have to create the RFPs. We have to go through this process. When we're talking large-scale organizations, that's sales. That's sales. This is where we're out in the ocean and we're fishing for the shark, right? We only need one pole, we only need one boat, and we need a lot of patience and perseverance, okay? We're not sales here, okay? If we're fishing with a pole here at FRV, we're losing right away. We are marketing. Every single one of us is a marketing agent. The difference is fishing with a pole versus fishing with a net, okay? So what are we trying to do here? With all this contact information that we got, we're trying to broadcast our message to as many people as quickly as we can, because we're creating numbers. If I throw 100, if I throw 100 messages out there, and I get one back that converts to a sale, great. That means if I want 10 sales this month, I need to get 1,000 messages out there. Now, that's a pretty shitty conversion rate. Sorry for my language. So then part of it then is in marketing, it's getting the message out there to a lot of people quickly, but then it's also making sure that two things are right. Is our message right? Is it clear? Is it understandable? Is it effective? And what's our cadence on first contact, follow-up, close? At the end of the day, a campaign is just communicating. It's initiating a line of communication. First, there's always a first contact. It's sort of uncomfortable. That's why I always say, shoot, send your message out via email. Send it to a lot of people, and then I'll show you what Robbie and I did. How can you button up that first email so it's not ignored? How can you get a conversion ratio that's pretty good on the first contact? By the time I make a call, somebody is going to have already heard from me a couple times. I have already built a relationship between Aaron Day and FRV with those two emails because I'm going to execute a strategy that's going to make it hard to ignore. So whether they like it or not, they know me, right? And so now I can call, this is Aaron, I'm with FRV, want to make sure, did you get this? Yes, whatever, boom, I'm in, right? It's a warm lead. All right, so when we create a campaign, part of it is obviously the contact information on our chase list. Now let's talk message, okay? First and foremost is obviously knowing our audience. Nonprofits versus restaurants, assisted living. What about pot shops in Boulder? If we're marketing to the college campus, seriously. Think about though, what if that's your target? How are you going to talk to them? Obviously with FRV, some thought needs to go into, how do we as a company position ourselves? Are the things that we do want in our offering or not? Do we want it in some communities versus others? So there is some strategy involved, but at the end of the day, depending on who's targeted and depending on who we're talking to, we can create a message that's going to be effective. The message clearly has to tell our value proposition. Why do you want to do business with us? Why do we want to partner with you? What problem are we solving? Or what are we adding to you to bring value? And that can be accomplished in any number of ways. Here's what we have to offer, and other people are doing it. We can ask questions. Wouldn't it be nice if? There are ways to really customize a message so that it's clear and concise and communicates exactly what we want to communicate. The quality of the message is only one part. The second part of the message, which is crucial, is engagement, right? Who's reading the message? And are they understanding it? Is there a way for us to measure that? Is there a way for us to really understand that people are, listening to us and hearing us? That right there, when it comes to marketing campaigns and ultimately bringing people aboard, it's a key cog in really making us successful. When we create a message, we have to understand it's not just one email or it's not just one phone call. There are going to be a series of touches before we win somebody. I've read a number of bits of data about this, and in cold sales, if you're beginning with a call and all that, it usually takes 8 or 9 touches before you make a sale, and that's a call, an email, an on-site visit, whatever, 8 or 9, right? Is there a way for us to limit that down? Is there a way for us to get it to 5 touches? So a cadence is pretty vital, So what I kind of look at is before I meet anybody, and if I meet anybody, to be quite candid, if I can make the sale, if I can do the whole process over the phone, I'd much rather do it because I can do 100 times more over the phone than I can do on site. But if I need to go meet somebody, I want to make sure, they've had 4 or 5 touches. The first one is, this is what we offer. The second one is, did you get it? The third one is, call, introduce myself. Can I send you some information? There's the fourth one. Here's some information. Would it work for you? By the 5th time, what are the next steps? Let's get this done. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the 6th time, then it's an on-site. But at the end of the day, you know, there's a cadence here that moves along pretty quickly that really starts to mine these things. If I'm doing that with, you know, 100 new people every week, 100 new prospects every week, you know, I'm going to be pretty successful. If I target a conversion rate of 10%, that should be, you know, 10 new accounts a week.
2 a day.
2 a day. And so let's talk about conversion rates. Conversion rates is sort of a slippery slope. You know, there is absolutely no reason why this can't be sold at a high level. All that matters in this type of selling is numbers. That's the only thing that matters. In fact, it matters, the conversion rates and all that matter so little in comparison to what we're trying to achieve. If in Bowler, I win 20 accounts out of 300, right? 20 restaurants. That's a good book. I have a pretty good
Ready to go live.
offering to sell, right? That's a what, 7% conversion ratio? The point here is that when you create enough touches, as long as you follow up on the touches, all you have to do is send this email, literally make a call. I mean, you don't hardly even have to say anything. You know, if you have enough numbers in the system, you're gonna get the closes. It really is a numbers game. And all you have to do is follow through on the actions.
So do you have like a checklist on where you're at with each of these accounts?
What's in the campaign?
I do,
Okay.
and I'll show you. So let's talk tools and how how we can sort of bring this all together. Oh, by the way, this thing right here, this thing is called Email Hunter, and this is cool. Look on Google Web Store for applets and extensions. There are all sorts that can help you find email addresses that'll actually mine for these things, and I'll show you how this works.
Through LinkedIn?
No, I'm sorry.
Google
Okay.
Chrome.
If you go to Chrome apps right there
Okay.
and go to the web store, there are all sorts of apps, these little apps and extensions that you can use that will go out and either look for email addresses or help you mine for information. If you're struggling with finding information, if you're finding something is taking an inordinate amount of time, look for a product or some sort of tool out there that can shorten up the process. This thing turns red. It's this little target. It's the extension that I downloaded. If I click it, it's going to think, and it's going to pull up any email address that's associated with the sync. You see all these things up here in my browser, like this one, assist.to. So when I make a call, what I can do is I can click that button, and it'll automatically populate an event on my calendar. I just have to put it in. Boom. It links up with my email, so then it can get a little bit more intelligent and say, okay, through an email, I've had this conversation, I need to schedule a follow-up or whatever. All these things are tools here. LinkedIn has a ton of them that can be used to help you in your cadence, finding information, scheduling the next phone call, scheduling the next meeting. What I'm trying to do is shorten my sales cycle. And I won't talk too much about, about like a CRM and all that. That's something that we can get into later on down the road. First things first is after I got my contact information, I uploaded it into my Gmail account. Here it is. I have 182. It's only showing 81. I have 182 contacts in here. Right there. 182. And I haven't uploaded everything just because, on a cadence level and whatever, I don't want to inundate myself. But I have 182 contacts. So that's part one. Part two then is I created some email templates that I'm going to use to talk to my customers. Okay, so this is one. I can send it out. Now, to be quite candid, this is a lot of information. Most people aren't going to read an email this long. I don't care. I don't care. It's got a message in it that needs to be communicated. My point is for them not to necessarily get this. My point is to establish Aaron Day and FRV. That's it. Now, why do I have an email with a lot of information? Because this is going to be used as an initial contact, and then in my second contact, it's created so that they refer back to it and pay attention. So that's template number 1. And then there's template number 2. Here's my follow-up. Just want to check in and see if you had considered the first email. So they're going to say, what email? Right? Now they're thinking about me and FRV. They're going to go back and look. And, there you go. Now, what's interesting is from this, we've gotten a ton of responses. Zach and Jess and Greg and
A couple that wanted me.
yeah, Bobby, Aaron, Todd, all these things. Anybody that's responded to me, even if they say we're not interested, they're mine. They're mine.
Good attitude.
So now what I did, I've looked at, there are some free CRMs on the Chrome App Store. So I was checking a few out. I looked at Rocket Bolt. I looked at ProsperWorks. I like ProsperWorks a little better. So I've uploaded most of the people into ProsperWorks, right? Now here's my contacts, got the companies, all that stuff. And then I've created opportunities based on who I need to follow up, who I've qualified, whatever. These are all the people that are interested right now, ones that I've qualified. And I made some calls yesterday. I've got about 11 more to put in. As you can see right there, just in the stuff I've input alone, that's $4,000 worth of business right there. Okay, now put in another 11, and we're talking about $8,000 or $9,000. That's my pipeline for June. So, I've created little opportunities. What I need to do, we can look. Here's the here's the contact information. What stage am I? When did I create it? What's the value? What's the priority? What's my win percentage? Now, and let's talk about win percentage. I kind of look at it this way. First, you have to determine when you intend to close it. By the end of this month, and what are the odds that you're going to close it that month, right? With, say, for instance, West Flanders, I got a positive response via email. We'll close that this month. I've got, because Salesforce is a paid subscription, it's fairly costly. ProsperWorks, I'm sorry, I'm answering this question. Why use ProsperWorks and not Salesforce? ProsperWorks is something that it's a tool that can be used to keep us organized, quickly, efficiently, keep track of what we're doing. I put a probability of 60%. There's a better than 50% odds that I'm going to win this. Now, I'll move that probability up once, they have the contract in hand. If they need to consider whatever, then I'll move it up. Until I have that in my hand, that's it. But the odds of me winning that this month are pretty high. Now, in some cases, Cantina Laredo, I've had a conversation with them. I don't have any sense for whether they're going to close or not. But I do know I'm having a conversation with them, and the moment I do have a further conversation and I get my next steps and establish a cadence for follow-up and all that, then I can assign a timing and a probability. I haven't married up everything, but like say for instance, right here, I can relate it to a certain, say, fake brewing. Boom. So I can relate this email to a company, and then it shows up in tracked emails. So I haven't gone back and done that because I just haven't. But I can marry these things together. So yes, on ProsperWorks, I can see who I've emailed. I can see who's opened them, and I can go from there. So again, there are lots of tools out there. There are lots of ways to do it. But at the end of the day, that right there, seeing who has opened my emails,
That's gold.
that's gold. That right there is a warm lead. So that's how I do it. Now, I sent out a first message. I sent out a follow-up message. I made some calls yesterday. Now I've qualified. Now, what about the ones that don't want to do business with me? Okay. A lot of them say, well, it's not at this time. Maybe once the summer season is done. No problem. I'll keep that for a follow-up down the road, because now they know me. I'm not going to let that just hang loose. But because they refused me the first time, I might have to come back and, say, hello, let's do this again. Oh, by the way, our prices have changed. Now we're going to upsell them a little bit. Because, do business with me the first time, great. The second time, this is great too, but you're going to pay for my time, But that's the thing, by the time we get to that, we'll have a good book of business so that, we do kind of have the luxury to upsell some of these people. It's a good way of, making it clear to people that, man, you should have done business with me. If somebody talks to me, that's a good thing. The worst thing I can get is absolutely no response. A blow off, I can't talk to them, they're not responding to emails, they're not looking at it. A tepid, a zero is a zero. So that's what we do. We do our research, we have a message, we have a follow through. We're using tools to be efficient. When you're doing research, what I'd recommend, just on a very mechanical level, figure out how to not use your mouse. How do you toggle back and forth? Stuff like that. That's so much easier than say, oh, where's the control A? How do you select all? You see what I'm saying? Boom, I just did it all. If you want to mine for data, your tactic is to do it as quickly as possible. So if it takes a little research or takes a little asking around on how to use things smartly, do it. Do it. On a professional level, as a salesperson, the quicker that you move, the more effective you're going to be.